Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Greek AF Radio podcast. Today we have a really super awesome, amazing guest. I don't want to make his head too big, but I mean, this guy is awesome, and you guys are going to get to see him very shortly and see how cool he is. Before we get to that, let me introduce Foti Stamos, my co-host. Hello, Foti.
Ari, how's it going, brother?
It's going great, man. I'm excited about today's episode. Big fan of this guy. I've been following him and impressive stuff. And I want to get inside his head. So, I maybe could get inspired to kind of get off my ass and do some stuff.
Yeah, you definitely need to do that. And I think our guest is the right man to get you to get off your ass and get back into.
You could say ass, Foti. Don't worry. It's a podcast.
Well, having said that, all of our guests that come on are, exciting. They've got great stories, but our guest that's coming on right now, I just want to say he's a badass. Now that we said the word badass, he's got an interesting background, impressive background, anything that stems from being a Marine, an entrepreneur, a family man, a podcaster. I want to say that this gentleman is basically what I consider what every man strives to be. So having said that, let's bring on our guest, Nick Koumalatsos. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you've got lots of things going on, but we really appreciate your time today with us.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor, man. It really is an honor to be hanging out with you guys.
Thank you, awesome, Nick. Awesome. Thank you. Foti, where do we begin, man?
I mean, it all began with browsing through social media that we actually stumbled across Nick.
Yeah. Because his social media, well, you know what? We're going to get his social media. We're going to have everything in the notes. So I'll have no fear that if you're not following him already, you will be. But let's go back to the beginning, Nick. Can you give us a little bit of background, where you grew up, how you grew up, so we could get to know a little bit about the background of you?
I was born in Florida. My family immigrated in 72, I believe 72 from the Greece to Montreal, and then Montreal to the US. And then my grandparents left, and my grandparents and aunt left in I believe 79. And my father was, young man. And it was, the late 70s. And he's like, I'm in Florida. The weather's awesome. Life is awesome. I'm not going back to Greece, where basically, like it is now, essentially, I'd be waiting tables or something like that. And he was doing good. So he's like, I'm having fun, I'm making money. I got a badass car that wouldn't even fit in Greece. It was a white SS Monte Carlo.
Oh, man.
For those who remember that.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I think I'm going to stay here. And thank God, right, for me, because I got created. And
Can you imagine? Well, okay. So you exist because he stayed here, but I was just thinking, how different if you as you are were born and raised in Greece. I mean, it could have been a completely different story.
It would have been a completely different story. I mean, I want to believe that people are who they are, and I'll get to that in a minute, talking about kind of like destinies and work ethic and things like that, and personalities. But yeah, so I was born in 82, and then unfortunately they split for other reasons, and I was raised mainly by my mother. And a couple years later, she had another son, and his dad wasn't in the picture either, and we moved around every 6 months from the time I was a little boy to about 2 years old, and up until I want to say about 12, 13, we stopped moving. But until then, we moved every 6 months, pretty much all over the United States.
What was that experience like? Was it, because I remember when I was really little, 12 and under, it would have scared the crap out of me to move around that much and have to meet new kids and have to go walk into new classrooms. And
you want to hear this is how it was. I hated it as a kid, because every 6 months it was like new classroom, new kids.
Yeah.
You're always going to be getting picked on. You're always the odd person. Me and my brother were always the new kid, the odd kids out.
And you got that big long last name too.
Yeah, right. And right. Which is a whole different. You guys know that's a whole different ordeal.
Yeah.
And probably everybody listening to that understands that. And so it was, here's the sad part is I'll never forget the look in my mother's eye when she said, "Hey, why haven't you unpacked?" And we were poor, man. We were like dirt poor. I had a black contractor garbage bag. That was my suitcase.
My gosh.
So that's where I put stuff in, and I just lived out of that. And she goes, "Why haven't you unpacked?" And I said, "Well, we're just going to leave again." So I figured it's just faster if I just leave it in there. And I'll never forget the look on her face of how like devastated she was that she, moved. And it wasn't for anything other than like job opportunity. I mean, she's a single mom, so she had to go where the work was. We never took a handout from the government. There was anything like that. I mean, she just did what she had to do to raise her two boys and survive. Right. And now, being the age that I am now and then serving in the military, that actually served me very well because I was very comfortable. A lot of adults are very uncomfortable with change and move and like travel, and they need their creature comforts and they need everything to be just the way that it needs to be. And I had literally grown up living out of a trash bag or a suitcase, you know what I mean? And so joining the military and living, sleeping here and going here and doing this, it was like, that was just my life. That was just another day. So I was very, very mentally flexible and mentally strong in that area, that aspect. And it gave me a lot of appreciation for a lot of different things. And so, while it was hard as a kid, hindsight, I'm like, man, that became a true kind of foundational building block for myself on how I saw the world and how flexible I was to do the things that I needed to do to be successful. And then essentially we moved back to Florida long-term. And that's when I started getting in trouble and kind of going from there. But we stayed there until I and we can get into that as well. But that's where I stayed up until I joined the military.
Wow. So I definitely think a lot of what you are is nature, but from everything you just explained, it sounds like it might be equally split nature versus nurture. It's like how you grew up kind of affected you, but you have to have it in you to kind of take it to that next level. I mean, does that sound accurate to you?
Yeah, because you got to look at me and my brother, right? Me and my brother, we grew up the same, but we took very different paths, and now our lives are very drastically different, and not necessarily bad or good. It's just that he has his personality and he lives the life that he wants to live, which is very modest and very, he doesn't want for much. He doesn't really have the desire to grow. He doesn't have and I don't mean grow, but he doesn't have the desire to have more, build more. Yeah. He's not on a path. He's
content.
Yeah, content. He's much more like my grandfather. He's like fish, food, kids. That's it.
And that's cool. That's perfect.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
But me, and we grew up the same. We almost had the exact same experiences. We both joined the military. Me before him, and he joined the military. We both went to war. We like literally have almost identical life experiences. We both have kids. We've both been through divorce. We both had hard times. We grew up the same. So I agree with you. I think it's a little bit half and half, and it's a little bit of my life, but also it has to do with who I am as a human being.
Yeah, because if it was all nurture, you guys would be exactly the same.
Exactly.
So that nature comes into play on your end for where you are now and what you've achieved, and all that badassness that we talk about, which is so cool. And on the flip side, his nature was different and perfectly, respectable and perfectly great, because I'm probably more like him, because I'm not a badass at all. So, but it's really cool to kind of see the person inside kind of break out of what they were nurtured into to kind of go that different path. So, okay. So all right. So let's take it to the next step. The next step is you joining the military. Is that like
no? The next step is me probably getting felonies and going to jail. Joining the gang.
Tell us.
So we got back to Florida, and puberty started to kick in. I hit puberty very young, and so now I'm I'm getting angry.
Yeah.
You know, growing up in a fatherless household. I did have a stepfather for a while. He was abusive.
Oh, geez.
The straw that broke the camel's back was, and this has been going on for a while. I'm not really sure my mother knew about it at the time, but I hit puberty. So I'm like, you know how it is. You know, when you're a young man, you hit puberty, you're all of a sudden like, wait a minute, I'm a young lion. You know, you're the old lion there and you're the young lion. You're like, I'm gonna flex a little bit, see how much I can get away with. You know what I mean? So I remember he came into the room and did something, and then we ended up fighting. So here I am, like 11 years old, fighting a grown man. I get thrown through a closet door. It's a big ordeal, you know, and got beat up a little bit, thrown through the closet door, and then I escaped through the window, and that was it. He was out of the once that big, you know. And then I remember seeing my brother, my little brother at the time, he hit puberty late. I hit puberty early. So we kind of did this like, now, and he's 3 years younger than me. So he still looked like a little kid and I started to look like a young man. And I remember him standing in the doorway watching this happen. He's like, you know, his eyes are like this big around, and woke my mom up. It was a whole ordeal. And anyways, he was out of the picture at that moment. Like that was, she like, that was done.
Good.
But it had been going on for years. And so, you know, that with not having my dad in the picture, I was looking, like all young men, we are looking for something. We are looking for connection. We are looking for mentorship, a tribe, something that matters, right? Something to be a part of. This is why I think sports for young men are such an important thing. Mm-hmm. Having a father in the home is such an important thing. There has to be some sort of manly connection to young men to keep them on the right path. Otherwise, they will find it in the most negative ways. They will search for it themselves. Unfortunately, I found it in a group of men that was in a, you know, quote unquote gang. And then which led to illegal activities. Mm-hmm. But it's because I craved connection. I craved a tribe. I craved something bigger than myself. And eventually, you know, a year down the road, I got busted. And long story short, they sung like a bunch of songbirds. And I was like, you know, thou shalt not pass. And you're not going to get nothing out of me. And, you know,
and everybody else did sing,
here's my shield and you're not getting it, you know? So they threw the book at me. I basically got all of it. Wow. I got charged with everything, and they pretty much everybody else got off.
So was that the signal to you that stuff has to change? Was that the signal?
No.
Okay.
It became fuel for more.
No, a little bit. I mean, it just kind of hardened me, you know what I mean? And you know, I was just like, well, that's the man, and you're not going to take me, and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I was tougher than you guys, and I'm just a kid. You know, in hindsight, it's like, it's crazy, but
yeah.
Anyways, so no, it didn't initially. And then it kind of started to snowball down the road. I got kicked out of school. I went to juvie. My mom worked a deal. Here's the shitty part, man. This is horrible. Listen to this. I don't remember if the first time or second time I went to juvie, but one day I got arrested and got thrown into juvie. And no kidding, it was the same day that my grandfather was having triple bypass surgery.
Oh man.
So my mom's at the hospital with her father having a triple bypass and gets called that.
Oh God.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That her son got arrested and got thrown in juvie for being a jackass.
Oh,
I gotta say, I don't know your mom, but man, she sounds very respectable and very, very tough and very, very strong.
She's been through some stuff, man. I mean, but you know, everybody has, but yeah, she's been through some stuff. She's actually a national best-selling author now.
Really?
Her name's River Jordan. And she's an author, and none of that was happening while we were kids. I'll tell you that right now. I laugh. I'm like, Mom, you waited till both your sons were out of the house to get published and make some money and have some things. But that's the way it goes. Everything takes time, but she never gave up. I did a great podcast with her just recently on the Always Forward podcast, talking about that and how that all happened. And she just never gave up on her dream, man. She just worked and never relented. Stayed relentless. So cool. Anyways,
that's amazing. But so what was it that Did you have like an immediate epiphany, or was it a gradual transition?
It was kind of a gradual thing that I saw the decline of my life, and I started to kind of clean it up. And I guess this is what happened. So I was on probation or something. I got kicked out of that school that I was going to. She moved me like 2 districts over so I could get back into school. And I screwed that up as well. And they caught me with a weapon on school grounds.
Oh, wow.
Which was an automatic felony because I was on probation. So I think I'm younger than 13 years old, or maybe I'm 13, and I've got 2 felonies on my record.
Wow.
The judge, people kind of came to bat to me saying that, listen, he made a bad mistake. He's a good kid. Give him a shot. So instead of locking me up, the judge, I want to say, gave me 2 years of community service.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 2 years of community service. That was my time.
Especially at that age, that's a long time.
Well, from 13 to 15, I did community service.
But I'm saying, like, even the way you perceive time when you're 13, that's like forever. Because
lifetime.
everything's like immediate.
Like this is where I'm at. I'm gonna be here doing this shit forever. You know what I mean? And so she was at a church, and she was going to a church, and she worked a deal with the youth pastor and the courts. Man, my mom, I mean, she's just a trooper. She worked the deal with the church and the courts to let me do my 2 years of community service at the youth group.
Okay.
So this youth pastor, his name's Jack McDonald. I'll never forget him. I owe him a lot. He basically made me, like, I would go to school, I'd get out of school, I'd go to this place, and I would like sweep they had this big building with it. The only way, there's no elevator, it was just a stairwell. And it was like, I don't know, 4 stories or something like that. And I would like have to sweep the stairwell every day. And then they'd have this big like open warehouse. And then I'd have to like sweep the whole warehouse. I'd have to take cords, trash. I mean, I was just there hours for 2 years. But then over the period of time, these pretty girls started showing up, and they started showing interest in me. And they're like, we're going to help you, fix you. And I'm like, sure. And that's what it was. Honestly, it was these people started to show a positive influence in my life. Obviously, those other people that I had been hanging out with, like those relationships got severed due to getting arrested and the gang getting broken up by the detectives and the whole ring. It was basically an organized crime ring in a way. We were stealing stuff, selling it, whatever. And nonetheless, that negative influence got replaced by a positive influence. Now, these kids were, they were working, they were going to church, they were being positive influence, they were on the hunt for a positive influence and success in their life, which obviously your network is your net worth, right? Yeah. So if your network is a bunch of juvenile delinquents, well, that's what you're going to be. If your network is a bunch of positive kids trying to live a good life and be successful and do good in school, that's the same thing. So that got replaced. And when that happened, there was like a trigger in my brain of like, okay, how do I get more of this? How do I level up? How do I fix my life? And because of going, getting kicked out of school and missing school and going to juvie, like I had fell behind. So I never went to the 8th grade. Wow. So I completely missed a whole entire grade. So I was behind like a year and a half. And so I had to go to this alternative school. And this is when it all clicked. Like that whole, like, it took me who I was and amplified it even more. Mm-hmm. Because now I'm going, okay, I got to fix this. I'm behind and I want to level up. So I had to go to this alternative school, which it literally was like barbed wire fences, literally a prison, mm-hmm. metal detectors. And you cannot get, and so where all the bad kids go, you cannot get in one fight. They said, you get in one fight, you're staying here.'re not leaving. Oh. You have to get this GPA. You're going to be here for a year and you can't get in a fight. And man, it's like going to prison. As soon as you walk in there, they're eyeballing the new guy and they're like, they're going to try something. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's damn near impossible not to get in some sort of altercation at this place. Right. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. I did not get in one. For the first time in my life, as you guys can look at me, you can see me, like, I'm not a gray man. I don't blend in. I stand out. I command a room, like I stand out in a crowd. Like, it's something that I've had to learn and almost kind of embrace who I am. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably the only time in my life that I really I was like, I am going to put my head down. I'm not going to look at anybody. I'm going to do my damn thing and get the hell out. And they said, you got to be here for a year. I said, I'm going to get out of here in 6 months. They said, there's no way you're getting out of here in 6 months. I said, what do I got to do to get out of here in 6 months? And they said, boom, boom, boom. I said, okay, I'm going to make that happen. So in 6 months, I got out of that alternative school and went to regular high school.
Bravo.
And so the 9th grade, I went to Bay High in Panama City, Florida, halfway through. And I only did a year and a half there. And the reason why is because after my 10th grade year, during that summer, I went to, and you guys will love this. I was working as an audiovisual technical person, setting up projectors and lights and stuff. And from 6 a.m. to 2 o'clock. And then from 2:30, I go to lunch for 2 to 2:30, and then 2:30 to 10 o'clock, I was a bellman. I was making about $4,000 a week.
As a bellman
at 16 years old. Between the two jobs.
Oh, man.
This is the late 90s. I'm 16 years old, making $15 an hour, hooking up projectors and lights and microphones from 6 to 2. And then from 2:30 to 10, I'm getting $100 tips, taking people around and being a bellman. It's a very high level resort in Panama City Beach, Florida, Bay Point Marriott. And so I'm like, yeah, 4,000. So when it was time to go to the 11th grade in high school, I'm like, I can't do that. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Like, why would I go back to school? And I was a CD student anyway. I barely passed the 10th grade. Hell, half of 10th grade, I probably wasn't even there, because I'd walk into school, somebody'd come in and be like, hey, the surf's up. Let's go boogie boarding and surfing. And I'd be like, I would grab my bag and be like, later, teach. And we'd be out the door. And, back then, there was no gates on schools, much different in the 90s. Right.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we would head off, but it was amazing that I passed, but it was time to go back to school. And I was like, I couldn't. So I got my GED, and then started and kept doing that job, moved into a house on the beach, was living the life. And it just freaking hit me like a ton of bricks one day. And I don't remember when it was. I just know that I just remember the feeling like, holy shit, this might be my life for the next 20 years. Like, I'm making good money, man. I could live off this for the rest of my life. I could do this and level up in this arena and work at this hotel and, have these different opportunities. And then in 20 years, I'm going to be right here. Same town, probably working for the same people. I mean, granted, like, you would progress, right? Next thing you know, I'm a manager. And then after that, I'm director and, 20 years, VP of something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was just the same. That's what made me panic. It was the same.
Yeah.
And you got to understand, look at my life leading up to that. My life leading up to that was not the same. It was constant growth, constant change, constant learn, new things, seeing new things, learning new things. And I panicked. I absolutely panicked and hit the nuclear option. I blew up my life, man. I blew it up. I left those jobs, left one, got fired from another because I left the other one. And then left the house, gave up my jobs there, obviously, and then wanted to join the Marine Corps. And I said, hey, I'm going to join the Marine Corps.
I feel, not to cut you off, but like, it's so interesting to hear the contrasts of your life, because it's almost like they can't like cage you or hold you or give you that kind of like be stuck in the same place. But then you went to something that's so strict and rigid, like the military, which is so interesting to me. But we continue. I just want to.
Well, there's an ending to that story as well, and it's very similar. I've never really heard anybody say like, "Oh, it's like you can't be contained or controlled." And I've never had anybody say that, but there is an issue with that. I do have a strong problem with that. So I went and go talk to the Marine Corps, man, and the recruiter goes like, "Yeah, absolutely, sit down. what's important to you. You know, I don't know if you've ever talked to a military recruiter, but they have this whole sales pitch of how they do it. And,
Sure.
you know, you're going to do this and that. And what's your strengths and weaknesses? And we're going to play into it. He's like, cool. All right. What's your information? I'm going to go to the back and run you in the system and get your information. And we're going to start this whole process. And I'm like, sweet, this is going great. He comes back out of the back and I can picture the whole room and the back door. And he goes to the back office and he comes back and he's shaking his head. He's like, kid, this ain't ever going to happen.
What?
Because of your
He's
history?
like, you will never join the military. He's like, you're a two-time convicted felon. You got a GED, you got drug stuff, you got gang things on your things. Like you're the bottom of the class person that we're going to ever recruit.
Oh, Jesus.
And this is during the Clinton era where they were downsizing the military and doing all that kind of stuff. So they weren't like you had to be primo to get in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
And and that's what did it.
Did that
When
make
they
you want it even more?
They told me no.
And you're like, I'm not taking that.
Yeah. They told me no. And I literally was like, that was the worst thing that you could ever have done. Because now it's my entire life's mission to prove you wrong. Because if I want to do something, I'm going to fucking do it, period. Like that's the way it's going to be. I live life on my terms. And so I left those jobs. Well, I left one, got fired from the other, and gave up my beach house, moved in with my grandmother, started going to community college. This was 1998, I believe. Started going to community college, was pissed off everybody in high school because they had just graduated and they were in there. Like they were 2 years ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I show up, I'm like day one of college. They're like, wait a minute, why are you here? I'm like, well, I just got a GED. I skipped it. I skipped the last 2 years of high school. And here we are together. That's why I think, I have a whole problem with the school system and the way it's set up. It's complete BS,
That's
because
funny.
here I am at the same level of that they are just 2 years earlier. They didn't, they didn't like that, but, moved in with my grandmother, got a minimum wage job. This was the painful part. I started working at nights at a movie theater as a projectionist. And I remember getting my first check and I was making minimum wage back then. And I don't know if you guys remember, but it was like $4 something,
Yeah.
$4 and something, down in Florida. And I got my first check and it was like maybe 125, 150 bucks for 2 weeks or something like that.
Oh man.
And I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? And I go from 4,000 a week to like $150 in 2 weeks.
That's crazy.
And, absolutely nuts. And so that's what I was trying to live off of. And anyways, went to school. Took me almost 2 years to get into the military. Had to take a bunch of tests. I got over 100 letters of recommendation. I had to prove everybody wrong. I got waivers for freaking everything. It was a long process. And I just showed them that I had something to offer. And eventually, after multiple levels of waivers and interviews, and multiple trips to maps, taking tests, doing these different things, I finally got in.
Awesome.
So I just figured I was like one step at a time. It was like, okay, what's the hurdle? So the first hurdle is my GED. Okay, I'm going to go to college. Once you go to college, you're a college student. So it supersedes you having a GED. So you're not, they don't even care about the high school. Now they're more focused on college. Okay, now I'm a college kid. I'm a college dropout to join the military. You know what I mean? And then I had to focus on the other thing. So it was just one thing at a time that I had to do. And eventually I got in. And as life would have it, 7 days in, I broke my wrist and got dropped to a medical rehabilitation platoon. So I had to overcome that. And there's a whole story there. But long term, I got in, I got the things done. And then while I was in, it was never enough. It was never enough. Where I was at, I always wanted more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to grow. So eventually I got the opportunity to, initially almost right in, I got the opportunity to go do a individual augment, a single, like just me deployed to Turkey. So I went, that was pre-invasion of Iraq, post 9/11. And we went and supported Operation Northern Watch. or I did. And that really changed everything for me because it opened my eyes to the world, which is the trip that was my first trip to Greece, which I guess you guys want to talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah. Which is very,
But then,
very interesting.
yeah. And then, so that was my first deployment. And then after, when I got back, I got the opportunity like to level up and go to what's called force reconnaissance in the Marine Corps. And at the time, this was pre Marine Special Operations Command. At the time, that was the top level of the Marine Corps. That was like the highest specialty MOS that you could go. And so I took selection for that and passed and made it and got into the unit and started my career in reconnaissance. Wow. And then left and then got the opportunity to go selection for to be a Marine Raider, to be a part of SOCOM, which is Special Operations Command within, the U.S. military. And then rounded out the rest of my career as a special operator, as a Marine Raider in Marine Special Operations Command, serving in Afghanistan. I went to Iraq as a recon Marine as well. And then all over Southeast Asia.
Wow.
So that was 12 years. And that is where that 12 years, my willingness to grow, my want to grow, was superseding the military industrial complex system. You know what I mean? Like, it's the military. You can only grow as much as they let you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not on you. Yes, there's a lot of things that are on you. And I did a lot of things, right? I took selection, I passed, I put my body and my mind through a lot of different things and was successful in my own right there. But at the end of the day, it's a system that you don't have control over. If you want to make more money, if you want to get promoted, it's not something that you can work really hard at and get. It doesn't work like that. You can work really hard at it and they still not give it to you because it's part of a system. It's not like here where, I wake up at 5 a.m. to do a bunch of work, and I wake up at 5 a.m. 7 days a week because it compounds, right? My work gets to compound. My effort gets to compound in my success. In the military, whether the guy next to you does the bare minimum or you put, all this extra work in, it doesn't, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter.
It's again, again, I see that contrast in you where you're in like the strictest, toughest like area of this, the Marine military, this whole thing, and you're achieving more and more. And then the contrast is that's not enough for you. There has to be more. Like it's so hard to be in the military to get to where you were. So you'd think your brain is just wired for that, but you did it. But then it was like, no, I can do more. It's awesome to hear this.
It wasn't enough. So that's, and you got to understand, like, multiple deployments to war, out of 12 years of service, I was gone for 6, I had a family, I had kids, and it just became I became worn down, mentally kind of worn out. I started getting angry. I started not liking the person I wanted, and I wanted to be promoted. I wanted to grow. What I wanted to move was at my own pace, at my own speed. My effort. I want my effort to be rewarded, but in the military, it's a system, right? You have to wait your turn. There's a board, blah, blah, blah. Other people have a say of your future. And I didn't like that. The only say in my future is me. Like, I'm not a victim. I'm not saying that I'm a victim. I'm never a victim, but I wanted control over if I fail or if I don't do something, that's on me.
It's on you.
It's my lack of education, my lack of output, my lack of will, and failures happen. That's okay. That's just, those are tuition payments of learning, but at the end of the day, I wanted more control over my success. Right. So that was, all those things collectively is what made me leave the service. Okay. And then when I got out, I contracted and then eventually led to the entrepreneurial space where, I started my first business, and that led to multiple businesses and then selling businesses. And then, now that's essentially what I do is, run a couple 7-figure businesses and that I'm super passionate about. It's changing men's lives, helping the community grow. It's amazing that you can make money and make an impact at the same time. I don't know why people don't realize that. They think one or the other. It's like, no, man, you can change, one, never be never apologize for being profitable. Never apologize for making money. The more money I make, the more good I can do.
I love that attitude.
You can't do shit if you're broke. You can't change lives if you're broke. That's the truth.
Yeah.
But everybody's like, oh, you're just a capitalist. Everything's about money. And it's like, yeah,
man, no,
because the more money I make, the better impact I can make.
Exactly.
I just bought my mom a car and a house.
It's not a bad thing to be able to provide and to actually have more than you need, because again, if you have that attitude that you have, and be realistic. Be realistic. You need money to make things happen. You want to do good. You can't do it without any funding. Right. Everything you're saying is exactly right.
So nonetheless, that's where the last 10 years of my life is. And now I'm mentoring other people. I've got a great mentorship group of men that I mentor. We have a fitness and health company that we predominantly focus on getting men back to where they're supposed to be. And as fathers, as husbands, as men, in the community, making sure they have their priorities straight, get the fat off their body, and make sure that they're being healthy. I mean, you guys know we have a epidemic in this country. The number one killer of men in this country is heart disease and obesity. Yes. That's not a disease. That's something that we do to ourselves. You know what I'm saying? It's a self-inflicted situation. So it can be correct. That means it can be corrected. And so that's one of our missions is to put a huge dent in that. I call it making men again.
Exactly. So could I ask you real quick?
Yeah.
So I've been making these observations about you while you're telling us your story. So now as an entrepreneur, do you find that this is the correct mix for you of rigid, strict kind of like ways to go about it, but also the freedom to grow and to keep achieving? Because in my mind, that it seems like that's the situation you're in.
So yes, you have to create your own, you're the captain of your own ship. We're on this rock, right? We're on this rock spinning through space. Your life is yours. Mm-hmm. In the grand scheme of things, we're so small. So if that's the truth, you guys just saw that universe picture they just took of all those galaxies.
The web,
and each galaxy has like hundreds of planets.
No, it's
just like
the human brain can't even comprehend these things.
What is out there, right? And that's what I try to tell people. I'm like, we're so small. So if we look at it that way, right? Not to make it depressed that we're small, but to make it a point that it's your life. This is yours. Stop living it for other people. Make it what you want. What do you want on your 100 years on this planet? Because that's all you get. So what are you going to do with it? Right. Make it what you want. Do what you want to do. If you don't want to be successful, you want to live in a van down by the rivers, fishing all the time, fucking sell all your shit. Go live in a van down by the river. Do it. Stop being stressed out and having anxiety.
Well, to your point, Nick, is I think that in our society, we'll speak about men being so conditioned to think otherwise that they don't have it in them to think outside of that whole idea.
Absolutely. And that's the problem, right? We're being conditioned to live this life of essentially mental slavery.
Yes. Agree 100%.
And the distractions make it way too easy to just fall into that trap.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So my challenge is just listen, you got at best, you got 100 years on this planet. Do what you want to do, man. Live your life. If you want to be successful, be fucking successful. Go crush it. That's what I want, but it's a choice. That's a choice for me. If I die today, I'm going to be like, dude, I gave it all.
Yeah.
And when I die at 100 years old, I'm going to be like, I left it all on the playing field, man. I gave it all out there. I want to love harder, play harder, work harder, all of it.
Wow. Personally, Fati and I need to hear this, but everybody out there listening, this is the truth. Nick is speaking the truth, and he is the proof in the pudding right there. Like he did it, and that's how he did it.
So talking about routine, like an originated part of it, the way you get there. So I like when I started, and I have these photos, like I love sharing these photos of me like overweight, my guts hanging out. And like, I just because I look at those photos and I'm like, this guy is depressed. He's not happy with himself. He's frustrated. He's stressed out. His cortisol's through the roof. His hormones are jacked up. Like that is not a happy dude. Right. And the reason why I share that, because I know other guys look at themselves in the mirror and when, you can lie to everyone else, but you can't lie to yourself. You can try, but you know how you feel, where you're at in your life. And you go look in that mirror, you wake up in the morning, you go stare at yourself in the mirror and you're like, fuck, this is not who I want to be. You know what I mean? I'm not living the life that I want to live. Yeah. And I share those because of that. Now, how do you get out of that? And how do we work with people is routine. So like you create this ironclad routine that serves your purpose and you don't waver for anything. And I don't mean that like I'm not given to my family or given to my, your friends and things like that. That's all part of your routine. But there's no, like you said, photos, like you said, there's no distractions. I'm not getting distracted by whatever crazy thing Biden said today or what he didn't say, what nobody understands. I'm not getting distracted by all the stuff in the media. I'm not getting distracted by these, like you said, they're distractions. I'm super laser focused on my world. They're like, Nick, the recession, Nick, this, what are you what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like there's no money in the world. There's still money in the world. People are going to work. People are buying groceries. Oh, but there's going to be food shortages. Rice and beans really cheap, man.
Well, those are the victims. They victimize themselves.
Right. I don't give a shit, man. I'm sorry. Like I don't care. Like I'm gonna do like recession. You know how many millionaires were created during the Great Depression? Go Google it.
Yeah.
How many? No, not people that were millionaires. People brand new
created,
millionaires created during that time.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a choice, right? You can choose. Am I going to be the person that's like in the garbage can looking for food, or I'm going to be the person that's like, you know what? I'm going to figure this shit out anyway.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a choice.
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. And again, that victimization, it's like, all right, you can sit there and be the victim and just watch the news and complain about everything, but where does that get you? Like it doesn't get you anywhere. So it's like, do something about it.
If there were more Nicks out there pushing out this type of content to the masses, maybe that might kind of oversee what people are being subject to, which is the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So before I got to go, I want to share one meaningful story. I want to share the Greece story.
Yes.
I got to bail. So I had never been, so like I said, my father and my mother split. And because of that, I never learned fluently. I can get around now. But I fluently, it's still, that's one of my goals is to speak fluently, but speaking fluent in Greek is, you guys know, like, what do we have, 6 million words or something like that?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I don't know. Speaking politics in Greek may be a bridge too far for me in the future, but I can go there. I get around fine. I can not speak an English word for 2 weeks. And I'd be fine. Yeah. But I want to converse. I really want to conversate. So speaking of that, if anybody's listening and you're in the US and you do online teaching, hit me up. I'm looking for a tutor.
We'll send you some links. We know some people.
Good. So here it is. So I'm in Turkey. This is 2002. This is post 9/11. I want to set the stage here.
After 9/11.
Just after 9/11. And these guys know the story because I told them on the phone.
Yeah, great.
And so this is the story. The preference. This is the story of how I got into Greece in 2002 without a passport.
Wow.
And as an American citizen, and I'd never been to Greece before. Now, growing up, and maybe some Greeks, Greek Americans understand this, or anybody can understand this, but I always felt, what is it, American Nike? Yes, that's
American
me.
Nike, yeah.
I always felt different. I didn't know why. I always felt misplaced. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my family, my memories. They make me who I am. My people, they just, man, they're the greatest salt of the earth people ever, right? And I owe them so much of my life. That's not what I'm talking about. But I had this internal conflict that I just felt misplaced, like there was something missing. And it's a very, very hard thing to explain. But it's just like you're the black sheep. Now, I didn't get treated like a black sheep. I don't want you to think that I got treated poorly, but it was a feeling, right? Like you're just different than everybody else in some way, and you don't understand why. But the places I lived, the people I was with, I just felt different from them. And so anyways, life goes on, then I grew up, I got a family, and I go to Florida, Turkey, and I get this opportunity to have like 4 or 5 days off. I've been there. It's a 7-month deployment. About halfway through, I was supporting the Air Force. So the Air Force is really soft. They're like, you can only work so much, and you can have to have downtime. And, this is not the Marine Corps way. They're like, hey, we're going to give you like a 4 or 5 day pass. And you can do it. I was like, well, I told him, well, I want to fly to Athens and go visit my family. My family lives in Lathraki. I want to go visit them for Christmas. And so I did all this work. I did all this work, and I got it approved, and I got the paperwork. I got a letter from the command in Turkey of my orders, and says that I am allowed to go to Greece.
Whoa.
From the Air Force. It's a letter. It said, hey, you're allowed to go to Greece. I have my ID card, my military ID card, my driver's license, and this letter saying, hey, I'm on orders to Turkey, but they're allowing me to go to Greece. That was all I had. So then I had to figure out how to get to Greece. And where I was at is I'm not just there. It's not just like I get on a plane and I fly to Constantinople, and then from Constantinople to Athens, and then I'm there, right? It wasn't that simple. So what I did was I went out in town. I'm in Incirlik, which is outside of Adana, Turkey, for those of you that don't know. So I go out in town, and I made friends with a lot of locals in Turkey while I was there. So I started brokering with them and saying, hey, I need to find a driver that could drive me to this airport in the mountains. Because I found a ticket that I could get on this airplane in the mountains, and then that would take me to, I think, Ankara, and then Ankara I'd fly from there to Athens. So I left at like, I want to say midnight. I find this guy that has a car, doesn't speak any English. My Turkish at the time was okay. You know what I mean? Like I could, point, direct, ask for things. And I'm going, okay. So I get in this car at midnight with this older guy that doesn't speak any English. And we just get in the car. I sit in the back seat, and he starts driving. Now, do you remember James Bond GoldenEye, the movie? Do you remember the airport that at the end of the movie it was on a cliff and they had the air thing?
Yeah.
It was like an airfield. Do you remember this?
So, all right. Yeah. I'm going to make a statement, but continue.
Okay. So we're driving through the mountains. It's starting to snow. I remember one time I look out the window and the moon's coming up. So it starts to see a lot. And I'm like, this road that we're on is just a cliff down this huge mountain. And we drive to this airfield, and it's an airport, but it's just there's no building. It's just an open thing. And I walk through a security, like a metal detector that is not even on, you know what I mean? And
right after 9/11.
Right after 9/11. And we get on I walk on this airfield in the mountains. He drops me off. I'm like, hey, this is it, I guess. I got a paper, like old school paper ticket, right? That they printed off at the thing in the town. So I got a paper ticket, my little thing, and a backpack. That's all I got. And I walk onto this plane. It's like I don't know. It's a plane, man. It's not a plane that you would normally ride on. You know what I mean? It's a passenger plane, but it wasn't a normal plane. And I make it to, so I walk off, they take off. It's literally in the mountains. And I wish I remembered the town, but I could point to it on a map. So we get there at about 5. It takes about 5 hours to get there. I think my flight is like sick. It's like just as the sun's coming up, I'm taking off. I make it to the next air, I do the transition. Now I'm in a real airport. Now I'm like in a terminal, right? It takes me to a terminal. And then finally, I have a little layover, have a little ouzo, and then I make it to Athens. And I'm going through Athens. Now I've been through Athens a ton of times, and I know exactly what to do. But so I'm first time there, I'm trying to figure out where to go. And I go through customs and I get to the customs guy. Now at this point in my life, I don't speak any Greek.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know a word. I don't even knew if I knew the word Malacca at the time. You understand? Like that's how little I knew. I didn't know
that's
anything.
That's the bare minimum. If you don't know Malacca,
But the
you
bare
don't know
minimum,
anything.
right? And I didn't even know that. So I get to this guy, he sees my name, Nikos Koumalatsos, and he goes, "You speak Greek?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. I don't want to get into the whole story of why, you know what I mean? It's embarrassing for, my father and whatnot, whatever." So listen, I'm like, I'm a military guy. I'm serving in Turkey. It's Christmas. They gave me a pass. They let me, my yaya and pap, they were still alive. Yaya and papu, they're in Loutraki. I want to see them. My Thea, she's outside. She says she's going to be outside waiting on me. My cousins are here. Like, I just want to come to Greece. It's my first time here and spend time with my family. And he goes, "So you're American?" Like, "Yeah." Here's my, he's like, "You don't have no passport." I'm like, "No, I'm trying to explain to you. I'm in Turkey, serving. I come to visit my family." And he goes, "And you're Greek?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm Greek, man." Yeah. I tell him all over again. He goes, he's like, "Okay." He goes, "Go have Christmas with Yaya and Papu." Stamps my paper. My sheet of paper that says he's allowed to go to Greece. My permission slip that says, stamps my paper and lets me go.
Wow. How wild is that?
That is crazy.
What are the
The statement I wanted to make is the whole entire story through Turkey, I was playing it out like a movie scene. So when you said, like, do you remember GoldenEye? I was like, I've been playing this whole thing out as you're talking, like it was a movie scene, because I can't imagine so close to 9/11 on your own in a foreign country, people you don't speak the language with, getting in a car in the middle of the night, like that. I mean, that is something. Like,
that sounds like an award-winning script for Hollywood.
yeah, it's just the balls.
And I
that
did,
you had.
and I did everything. I like all of this logistic stuff. I did it myself. Like, I just figured it out with locals and whatnot.
Yeah.
So anyways,
crazy.
I get to Greece, and my Thea picks me up. She meets me there, and she sees, she's obviously seen pictures and we talked and everything, but she sees me in person for the first time, and she's like, "Oh my God, he's one of us. Look at him." He looks, and me and my little cousin, little Nick, look, I mean, we look like brothers. We look the same, beard, hair, eyes, nose, everything. We looked exactly the same. And she's just like, "Oh, that's a Koumalatsos right there." There he is. And I get in the car and I'm looking around, and we're driving from Athena to Loutraki. And man, a lot of people won't understand this, and maybe they will. It was like and I told you guys, I don't know if people that believe in frequencies and earth and
Yes.
where I believe that where your genes are from, you have a unique frequency that matches that area. Right. And you hear people like all the time, right? Like people that are Irish, that maybe are first generation Irish, that they go to Ireland and they just feel at home for some weird reason. It was the first time. So here I am, 20 years old. It's the first time in my life that I had this weight off my shoulders, that I felt like I belonged somewhere.
Wow.
It was the first time in my life that that black sheep feeling went away.
Wow.
I didn't feel it there. Now, of course, people looked at me like, you're not a Greek guy. You're American. You're American Nike.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even my own family sometimes would say things like that. But regardless of what people said, what I felt was different. When I got in that water, when my feet hit the rocks, when I even just being in the cab driving from Athena to Loutraki and seeing everything and being there and the smelling things and the dryness and it was like I breathed for the first time. Like I was holding my breath for 20 years. And the first time ever in my life, I exhaled.
Wow.
That's an amazing way to put it.
That's awesome. And it's
And
like, it's one of those inexplicable things that because you feel it, but it's like, it's hard for you to like kind of describe it with just
and every
words
time
because
now I go, I feel the same feeling. I land. You guys obviously go to Greece, right?
Yeah, we definitely share the same feeling.
You walk out of the Athens airport and you see the countryside right in front of you, right? There's the train station right there and the countryside, and the weather hits you, and I'm just like,
yeah.
back.
That's such a great story. I mean, that whole thing just played out like a movie. I mean, I could totally see it, and it's I mean, it's amazing. I don't know how many people could say they've been any country without a passport. So you got that one thing.
Who now? We know somebody now.
Yeah. And
wow. So Nick, can you? I mean, we were planning half an hour, and I don't think an hour was even enough. Can you come back and we kind of splinter off into different stories? Because I know there's a lot that we want to ask you.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot that you have to offer. We would love to have you back, and we appreciate so much that you took the time. And again, we know you have to go, but we appreciate that you took the time. Can you just tell us very quickly, and also we'll have this in the notes, your social media or website, anything you want to share so we could get it out there?
Yeah, I'll leave with this. Is if you're not the person that you know you should be, get a hold of me. Whether it's your fitness, whether it's your success, your goals, your family, if you're not living up to the person that you know you're supposed to be, get connected with me. Excellent. I will show you the work that you have to put in. I will give you a roadmap and the work that you have to put in to be a better version of yourself.
Wow. And
if not for you, for the people that love you, your wife, your kids, your husband.
Amazing.
Like that's what I do. My mission in life now is just to inspire, motivate, educate others to live a more healthy and successful life. That's it. That's my purpose on this rock.
And you know what? I have 100% faith that you can do it. I know you've done it, and I know you can do it again. And what Nick is telling you, get in touch with him if you have that. Otherwise, follow him, do everything you could do, because this guy, he means business. And I love listening to his stories. Thank you so much, Nick, for being with us. We're going to have you back whenever you have the time. Absolutely. We'd love to hear more. And again, thanks for taking the time. Thanks everybody out there for watching and listening. And we will see you next time.